Chapter 6. A Glimpse of Light. The article that changed Oliver's life began as a dare. Eleanor, perched on a stack of newsprint in Crow's shop, tossed him a crumpled broadsheet. "Read this tripe! Some toff speech about moral decay in the lower classes. Bet you could shred it blindfolded." Oliver scanned the piece, a pompous sermon by Lord Mortimer Vane, a parliamentarian notorious for evicting tenants and hoarding grain during famines. His fingers itched. That night, by candlelight, he penned a rebuttal so scathing even Crow's rabid press seemed to hum approvingly. "If virtue is measured by the depth of one's pockets," he wrote, "then Lord Vane is a saint. But saints do not starve orphans to gild their chapels." He signed it, "A Watchful Eye," and slipped it into the postbox for the London Ledger. 1 week later, chaos erupted. The Ledger's presses sold out by dawn. Lord Vane threatened lawsuits. Crow's shop flooded with orders for reprints, the clatter of the press echoing like war drums. "Who's the fool that wrote this?" Crow growled, though his mouth twitched toward a smirk. "Vane's got the temper of a scalded cat." Oliver kept his head down, ink staining his cuffs. "No idea, sir." But that evening a polished carriage halted outside the shop. A footman in livery rapped on the door, delivering a cream-colored envelope sealed with wax. For A Watchful Eye. Lady Celia Hartley resided in Mayfair, her townhouse a palace of marble and stained glass. Oliver stood in her parlor, acutely aware of his patched sleeves and ink-stained nails. A portrait above the mantel depicted a younger Celia, auburn-haired, sharp-chinned, her gaze daring the artist to blink first. "So," said a voice like chilled champagne, "you're the phantom who's got half of London squirming?" Lady Celia swept into the room, her morning gown black as a raven's wing. Widowed at 25, she'd inherited her husband's fortune and his disdain for societal niceties. Oliver bowed, clutching his hat. "My lady, I assure you, spare me the theatrics." She tossed the ledger onto a lacquered table. "This is your work. Don't bother denying it. I've bribed printers less stubborn than Crow." Oliver hesitated. "What do you want?" "Want?" She laughed. "I want to fund your next piece, and the one after that. Consider me your patron of provocation." The proposal. Lady Celia would secure Oliver a column in the London Ledger, paying him 3 guineas per piece. In return, he'd highlight injustices overlooked by gentlemen in comfortable parlors. "And," she added, swirling her sherry, "you'll attend my salons. My guests adore radicals in ragged coats." Oliver's mind raced. 3 guineas was more than Crow paid in a month. But Celia's smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "Why me?" he asked. She paused, her mask slipping. "Because I too once wrote under a false name. Because the world silences women unless we shout through men." She leaned closer. "You've a gift, Mr. Graves, but gifts starve without patronage." That night Oliver found Eleanor mending stockings in the attic. "Take the money," she said without looking up. "You'd be daft not to." "It's a leash," he countered. "She'll want to own my words. So own hers first." Eleanor jabbed her needle into the fabric. "Use her coin to build your name, then cut the leash." Mr. Crow's reaction was less pragmatic. "You'll leave then," he muttered, staring into his gin, "to prance in parlors with parasites." Oliver tightened his grip on the typesetting stick. "I'll still work here. Mornings only." Crow snorted. You think she'll let you? High society's a cult, boy. They'll scrub the streets off you, one layer at a time. The first salon was a trial by fire. Lady Celia's guests, a mix of artists, politicians, and bored aristocrats, peered at Oliver like a zoo exhibit. Charming, drawled an earl, eyeing Oliver's second-hand suit, a proletarian pet. But Lydia Hart, the poet whose pamphlets Oliver had printed, cornered him by the pianoforte. "You're the watchful eye," she whispered, her cheeks flushed. "Your article on the workhouses, I read it to my sisters. They wept." Oliver's throat tightened. "Did it help?" "It made them angry," she said, grinning. "That's a start." Later, as Oliver left, Lady Celia pressed a book into his hands. Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. "Read this," she said, "then write me something that terrifies you." On the walk home Oliver clutched the book like a shield. Eleanor was right. This was a ladder, but beneath Celia's polish he sensed a hunger to own not just his words, but his voice. Climb first, he told himself. Worry about the fall later.